Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Box Report. I am your host, Michael. The reason I'm laughing because we get it as we were getting ready to start things. Everyone was excited, including Gail's boxers, dogs in the background. What's going on, lady and gent?
Of course, they're always quiet till we start the show because they're just so damn excited for the pound for pound boxing report. You know,
Yeah,
my dogs aren't stupid. They're in.
because this was truly one of the better weekends of 2023 when it comes to the sweet science. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc. Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it pertains to the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out any and all information, the site is the best place to go to, p4pboxingreport.com. Um, on the site, you'll find links to where to check us out, where to find us all over social media, links to the YouTube channel, links to the Facebook, Twitter, IG page, links to where to find Pound for Pound Box Report on your favorite podcast platform, be it Anchor, be it Spotify, be it Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report. If you would like to donate during this holiday season, in the spirit of gift of giving, got a Cash Me and PayPal for donation links. It wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5, 10. If you have some spare change and you would like to contribute, we will be grateful. It'll help the overall production behind the scenes. Um, Last but certainly not least, excuse me, for fellow fitness enthusiasts or for those who are looking to get in shape during the holiday season, keep off those excess pounds. Please check out the links to BODI, formerly known as Beachbody on Demand, um, fitness programs for any and all suitable fitness goals and interests. If you're looking for weightlifting, check out programs like Lift 4, Lift More, uh, Body Beast. If you're looking for hard, challenging, um, CrossFit, hit, functional style kind of workouts, check out programs like 645, 6 weeks of the work. If you're looking for a morning program, check out programs like Morning Meltdown, the P90X series 1, 2, and 3. They're still on body and they still work. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds, and that is a 6 week program, 3 days of boxing based cardio, 2 days of weightlifting / resistance work, or at the very least, take advantage of the 14-day trial, which runs throughout the year. And that is for 14 days, you get free access to any and all programs on body, including the sample program for the latest workout program that's coming in 2024, and that is Dig Deeper. That's another exclusive weightlifting program. Let's get things going. Normally, I have everyone talk about the fights together as one, but because there were so many fights that took place this past weekend, and there's so many fights happening this coming weekend, I'm going to split things up. But I want everybody's everybody's point of view, excuse me, and reaction to the first fight we're going to talk about. It is the big matchup of the past weekend, highly anticipated showdown between Regis Prograis defending the WBC 140-pound belt against Devin Haney, former undisputed champion at 135. In previewing this fight on the last episode, Gail, we all felt that this was going to be a competitive bout. I personally thought that Prograis was going to give Haney fits, but did not turn out to be the case. You talk about a masterclass. That's what Devin Haney put on um, in this fight against Haney. I named the episode "Leaving No Doubts" as a result because Haney left no doubts from opening round. Second one, he dominated the action, put him down in the early rounds. I think it was round 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. Heard him again in the sixth. Uh, this was a one man show. I didn't give Rougarou a round on my personal card. One of the most impressive performances of the year. Haney, for years, has insisted that he was fighting a bit handicapped. Uh, Apologies for those who may find that word offensive. That's the only word I can come up with at the time because he was so depleted, getting down to 130 pounds. He that proved to be the case because at 140, this was a different fighter, Gail. Outstanding performance, truly outstanding.
I'm so fortunate that I was ringside for this card and for this fight. And I've seen Haney plenty of times, covered him ringside. Actually, it was at his professional American debut after his first few fights in Mexico when he was 18. And to say that he came alive is an understatement. And it does prove, and he admitted after the fight, just how much draining himself down to 135 was affecting him. He was still plenty skilled, smart in the ring, speedy, good footwork, but he'd always felt very sensitive about the comments about pillow hands, not being able to knock guys out. Well, at 135, he just couldn't, at 25 years old, stuff himself back down into that frame and keep up with his strength. He talked after the fight about having phenomenal sparring sessions, plenty of power, and then he'd have to make weight and he'd get in the ring. And he said he'd honestly wonder, where did the power go? Man, damn, I had it in the gym. Well, at 140, those 5 pounds made all the difference. And the power was there. It was real. And even more impressive, he lost no speed, no footwork, no nimbleness. And his defense was overlooked. It was so on point. The fact is that Prograis could not find the target, or he would aim at the target. He knew where it was. He could not get there. Haney would just turn out of the way, just step back enough. His judgment of distance was like he had, a laser measurement yardstick or something. He just get himself out of the way. It was beyond impressive. And I say it was even more impressive than if he'd just gotten a quick knockout. Sometimes a guy gets a knockout, luck meets opportunity, the opponent makes a mistake, and there's a lot of rationalizing. As I told Sergio Mora, I said, this was more like Haney tied Prograis to the back of a pickup truck and drove him down a bumpy road for 12 rounds, and he looked like it after the fight. It was a complete and utter beatdown, and while I don't think he's the final candidate, Haney pretty boldly said, I think I should be fighter of the year. I think my father should be trainer of the year. Well, the year isn't quite over yet, but he's certainly a finalist after that performance in the year he's had. Really, really impressive. I don't lavish this much praise on a fighter very often, but he earned it.
He, despite his status as undisputed champion, Daniel, there was skepticism of him by plenty of folks in the boxing landscape, right? Some would question his pound for pound status and where he should be ranked. There should be no more questions after this. He is legit good, not just legit good. He is legit an A-level fighter at this point. It reminded me of the buzz before James Toney and Roy Jones, November '94, and Jones beat Toney in such a manner that his his rep uh, went up another level. Another level. He went from like a guy who's really talented to superstar. That's what I got. That was my feeling after this fight. Uh, Not only is Haney pound for pound, He's high up on the pound for pound list as far as I'm concerned. I'm talking top three, top five. I'm not going to say he's the best. He's the fighter of the year. Um, I'm still putting Bud above him. And if Inoue becomes undisputed champion at 122, he has an upcoming fight December 26th against Tapalas. If he becomes undisputed at 122, I'm still putting Inoue above him. But he should be in consideration, no question.
This told so many stories and cleared up a lot of mess. Number one, that Haney does have a bit of a mean streak in him. Because you have to remember, during the weigh-in, after being interviewed, Regis Perkins decided to instigate the crowd. Pretty much, I
I'm
think he
sorry.
said,
I'm sorry. That was kind of funny. To me, it
yeah,
was.
because
And he like the polite way he said thank you, and then he grabbed the mic after Hades.
yep,
I'm sorry,
said
that
the
was hilarious.
Haney's and San Francisco, y'all are crackheads. I'm like, okay. I'm like, lightweight, 135 Haney, I don't think he would have been able to do what he did to Prograis. But in this makes a key difference. Luckily, when it comes to young fighters, you have to know when not to overstay in your division. Haney did all he needed to do at lightweight. He became undisputed. And because he developed a mean streak, he got over the hurdle that I said last week. I thought that was the issue. The fact that he was already thinking about going to welterweight. I was thinking he may be already thinking too far ahead, and that may be an opening for Prograis. Prograis might have Una reversed that because I have not seen that type of domination with power in a good while. You have to remember, folks, none of the judges gave Prograis a round. The cards were literally 120, 107 on all three cards. And Prograis didn't even bother it. He didn't try to counter
It
saying
was
they should have
child's
won round
play.
two. Yeah,
After the
that
sixth
was
round, it was child's play.
yeah, and that was how easy it is. But that tells you, like I said, first it tells you probably that Prograis may himself have overstayed too long 140. He should have been up at 147 already. But it also now tells you, okay, how much of a difference those 5 pounds made for Haney. Where a lightweight he had to be more of a boxer, and unfortunately he left his chin suspect in a couple of fights. Just go up one division, suddenly your power's there, your reflexes are better, you're not as drained. This was a virtuous performance for Devin Haney. He is in the running for fighter of the year, considering what he accomplished. But yeah, he's not going to beat Bud. He's not going to beat Bud. And if anyway does what we all think he's going to do, he's not beating anyway, as far as those running into it. But he should be discussed as at least top three, if not top five, if not top three, because he's proven that he's now proven. He actually made me eat crow when it comes to him and Shakur Stevenson now. Because now, think about it, Shakur at 140 versus this Haney, it's a more interesting fight than if they would have fought at lightweight.
Dynamic shift, no doubt. Immediately, Haney jumps to the top of the mountain, goes to the top of the mountain at 140. Right. Let's talk future here before we move on to other fights on this card. Uh, 140 all of a sudden is becoming very, very lively, right? With Haney, with Matias, whatever you may feel about Teofimo, and I have my thoughts on him. And I've said it in previous episodes. Teofimo and Tank and Shakur, should they eventually move up to 140 pounds, there's been a debate in terms of, but specifically between Haney and and also Ryan Garcia. My apologies, Ryan Garcia. He's also at 140 pounds. There's been a debate between about a proposed bout between Davis and Haney, and a lot of people have felt prior to this fight that Tank Davis would not only beat Haney but stop him. I'm sorry, not after this fight, not after that performance. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, he's not beaten that Haney that we saw against Prograis. Uh, Teofimo has an inflated sense of self and often has looked down, in my opinion, at Haney. He thinks he's so above him. I don't know if he beats him at 140 pounds, even as good as he looked against Josh Taylor. Matias is dangerous. Garcia, he's second level at this point. Given how good Haney looked, what would you like to see from him in 2024, Gail?
Well, I would like to see him fight Teo, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I'll tell you what Eddie Hearn wants. He wants to stage the big money grab fight against Ryan Garcia. And I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that. There's history between Haney and Garcia. It would sell like crazy. It would raise Haney's profile even more than this past fight did. And then it tees up those title fights with a bigger audience than he might have if he were to tackle them now. I'm also very intrigued by the ambition of going up to welterweight. And that is something Bill wants. Bill wants to do that. I think he's somewhat talking Devin into it, although Devin doesn't seem opposed at all to that. He still remains very ambitious. I'm not sure about the feasibility of it, but I do like the attitudes of both Bud and Devin. I think they do it if the circumstances are right, if the price is right, if there are other opportunities, aren't really lined up in the right way. But Haney wants to become undisputed in another division. Based on what he looked like this weekend, I see a very clear path to doing so. But, go for some big money, knock off Ryan Garcia, get the payday while Garcia's stock is, still high and he's still extremely popular. And I know that the Haneys have great respect for Eddie Hearn. They like working with Eddie. Eddie, has done business with them before. It's always gone well. He helped Devin set up his promotional business back when he was 20 years old. So I see something like that happening. Now, maybe Devin goes ahead and takes Romero because Romero does have a belt. That's the appeal of Rolly. And God knows that fight will get a huge buildup. If you thought Prograis and Haney went at it after each other, imagine Rolly and Devin going after each other. And honestly, there's just not a wrong move Haney can make right now. He's riding high. He can sit and think about it. I see the comments, Hot Boxing Minute, Jeffrey, nice to have you out there. Yeah, I do think that is a big money fight. That's frankly easy work for Haney. Certainly easy work for the version we saw Saturday.
Yeah. Read the comments here of Hot Boxing Minute. Appreciate you for checking us out live. If you have not, or anybody who's checking us out on YouTube have not done so, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. He says, I think Haney and Garcia might be next. Relatively low risk money fight for Haney. A lot of people feel that way as well. Hot Boxing Minute. I'll go to you on this one, Daniel. Garcia went on social media and said he wants to fight Haney. A lot of buzz around, a lot of talk around Garcia. We discussed last on a previous episode how there was an offer on the table from Golden Boy for a fight between Garcia and Teofimo. Teofimo said no. I made my feelings known about that. Just go to pass to the latest previous episode on YouTube. If Garcia and Teofimo is not going to happen, uh, do you think? Do you agree with Gail that the most viable fight for Haney would be a matchup with Ryan? We know he's a moneymaker. Still questions about how much of a legit fighter he is, but he's a cash cow. And from just the financial perspective, um, you wouldn't be mad if the representatives for Haney would entertain such a fight.
It's a smart move because yes, Ryan is still a cash cow in the division, and remember he's still getting adjusted to Derek James training style. So you're still catching him, but he's not fully integrated at that point. But we all know what it is for these kids. It's they want to know who's pulling the money, who's making the draw between him, Teofimo, Tank, Ryan. For Ryan, it makes a bit of sense because okay, you want to shut people up in the next fight, and if Haney's already thinking about doing welterweight, it means a catchweight is more feasible. And not to mention that if you get this fight and it winds up selling really well, it really, really would be a way to rub it in Tank's face to say that Ryan, it was the draw, not Tank. That's one way to look at it. But if Haney's smart enough to where he can say, like, you know what, I want to become undisputed in two-weight divisions, go straight to Rolly. Go straight to Rolly. Yeah, the promotion would be classic as far as comedy, and it's literally the lowest hanging fruit as far as titles are concerned. People having world belts. So Garcia's for the money, but if you want to snatch up a quick belt, another quick belt at 140, Rolly's right there for you.
Let's talk about some other fights on this card. I'll go back to you, Daniel, and intriguing bout at 140 pounds between Montana Love and Liam Paro. From what I saw, this fight was kind of boring until all of a sudden Paro turned on the power and put Montana Love down and out, stopped him in the 6 rounds. There were a lot of questions about Montana Love. How legit was he? Uh, Turns out that those questions raised about him were correct. As once Paro was able to clock him a couple of times, Montana Love had nothing.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where careful matchmaking goes up against you, unfortunately. Whether it was with Canelo or whether it was with Jake Paul, Montana Love's career has been guided a little bit safely. Uh, kind of, and I would say Munguia-esque in a way, with how people have guided his career, where you never have really had a really, really serviceable tough test. But this test came, and Paro, once he realized that I have to hurt him in order to win this fight, he was able to turn on the gas, and he hurt Montana enough where he wasn't able to really recover. Is that's more of an indictment on Montana's camp or Montana's management did not prepare him for fights like this, and is hoping that they have gimme fights into it. Can he recover? He's young enough where he can, but is he gonna reach any of that potential that people had in mind when he first was coming up? No, he probably has a ceiling at this stage. He'll probably be a serviceable fighter, but he's not going to reach like full on champion status to me.
Last week we talked about Ebony Bridges, right? Um, one of the more polarizing figures in boxing, Gail. Um, she defended IBF belt at 118 against a very unknown lady from Japan by the name of Yoshida. In preview last week, I felt that because Bridges was the naturally bigger woman, very, very strong for 118, I was questioning whether Yoshida had the kind of firepower to deal with the strength and the pressure of Bridges. Well, Yoshida, she sure proved me wrong and had me left with egg on my face as she just fought with her hair on fire, uh, inexhaustible gas tank, right? Just like Haney was in control against Prograis from opening bell, same in this fight as she attacked with a vengeance, didn't give Bridges room to operate, room to breathe. It got to a point where she had Bridges on the back foot for the majority of the fight. Miyoshi, a former champion at 115 pounds. If you look at her backstory, she's kind of a superstar. She's kind of a star in Japan because of her mixed martial arts background as well. Now she is a two division champion. Um, to many, this is one of the more surprising results of the year, and arguably the most surprising result on this card.
Well, it was surprising to us, and it shouldn't have been, the bottom line. We simply didn't know enough and respect enough about Yoshida's background. She is a former title holder. She's a former WBO Superfly champion. She's also a former Muay Thai champion. She has a lot of experience, and she moved her base of operations to New York a few years ago. She is co-promoted by Lou DiBella. So not many people have really seen her in the United States. She only
Excuse
had
me.
3 total fights in the US, her last 3 fights. And the last fight, she was on a DiBella Entertainment Broadway boxing card, a little step up really from a club fight. And she lost a decision to Sharetta Metcalf at bantamweight. And there was a minor IBF strap involved. But Bridges had several opponents fall out, and Yoshida was the 3rd opponent who they finally solidified just weeks before the fight. She had only had her last fight on November 7th, so 33 days ago. Bridges had been out of the ring 14 months. And there lies a clue to what happened. Ring rust is real. Staying busy is a benefit. As long as you aren't hurt, roughed up, injured, cut, Yoshida was ready to go. She was warmed up, tuned up, if you will. Her motor was running the minute she got in the ring. She didn't have any rust to knock off. She had the opportunity of a lifetime in front of her, and she seized it. That's the bottom line. She wanted it more. She was like a buzzsaw in there. Meanwhile, ringside, there's Lou DiBella sitting there going nuts at watching Yoshida take Bridges down. And with Lou was Yoshida's young daughter, who appears to be about 9 or 10 years old, cheering like a boxing fan veteran there ringside. Yoshida's a single mom. This is how she's making her way. And it was the feel-good story of the night. She took Bridges down. To her credit, Ebanie credited her, congratulated her. She knew that she was the better woman on the night. And these are the kind of fights that can really change a boxer's life. So good for Yoshida, and I look forward to seeing her again. Bridges will have to really decide what she wants to do. She admitted in an interview not too long before the fight that, she makes her living in ways other than boxing. And we all know that by now. She came to boxing late as well at age 37. So she talked about, having a little bit of trouble motivating herself. What am I killing myself training for I don't need the money. You start saying those things out loud.
When you talk like that, you got one
Start
foot out the
manifesting
door.
themselves. They really do.
You
So
got one foot out the door.
you have to think about that. And you know what? No shame to her. She's got a lot of irons in the fire. She's doing a lot of business out there. And, to her credit, she completely knows what people think of her. She laughs about it, but she's not above using those tools because it's brought her fame and a lot of money. I don't hate her for it, but she is really going to need to decide, is boxing still important to her? Does she still have the drive? And, sometimes a loss like this reignites the fire. So we'll see.
Last fight on this card I want to touch. Andy Cruz fought and would look terrific in a 2-round stoppage of a late replacement opponent, Jovanni Straffon. I want both of you discuss. I want both of your input on this. The reason being, afterwards, Hearn, his promoter was lauding Cruz's praises. Right, Haney got into a bit of a back and forth with oh god, the guy that Cruz beat to win the gold medal, the top ranked lightweight. Help me out here.
Sean Davis.
Yeah,
Keyshawn
Keyshawn.
Davis, right?
Keyshawn.
Keyshawn Davis he keeps insisting that he wants to fight. I don't think so. Hearn is already talking about him having Cruz return in February against the top 15 guy. Look for Cruz to be ranked in the IBF in the next ranking coming up at the top of 2024. Here's my question. I wrote an article for Three Kings Boxing. Shout out to threekingsboxing.com, your source of pure unadulterated boxing information. Shout out to the entire Three Kings Boxing crew, 2K, the man behind Three Kings, Bo, who you heard here on the show numerous times. Senior writer, head of media relations. I'm a senior writer there. Shout out to Bakari, fellow senior writer. Ed, who's our editor, all the contributors behind the scenes. Cruz is saying that he's here to dominate. He's here to conquer 135. They're putting him on the fast track, right? With the division in transition following Haney, in the aftermath of Haney deciding to vacate the belts, where does Cruz fit? I think he's a wonderfully skilled fighter. I think he's not your average, everyday, up and coming prospect, quote unquote. I know there's a lot of talent at 135, right? With Kid Austin, with Keyshawn Davis, there's another very good lightweight on the top rank stable. You got Frank Martin, right? I think that Cruz deserves to be right in the mix. I mentioned how I think he has his way with Keyshawn Davis in the fight in the pros. George Kambosos is going to fight for the IBF belt. I think if they put Cruz and Kambosos for the vacant IBF title, Cruz beats him right and beats him easily. Your thoughts on Andy Cruz?
They're putting him in a fast track.
With you, Daniel. You can follow up, Gail.
They're putting him on a fast track. I like that. I do like that they're putting him in a fast track. Which is what you need to do now in a division that is as freed up as lightweight is. Luckily, Haney vacated. Everybody now has a shot, and you better get in while you can. And unfortunately, with Keyshawn having the testing issues per se, lingering in that area, you can't just lull around if you're a promoter. If you already have another good, talented lightweight there in your division that's ready to take a belt, and now you don't have to worry about the logjam of waiting for the undisputed to fight you. So it's a good chance into it. He did take some decent shots, unfortunately, during this fight, but he pulled through, and obviously they're going to try to put this kid in the fast track. He is very talented. Like I said, there were some warning signs in this fight, but you're at a point this time in your career where iron is sharp as iron. And Get those tests in early because you don't want to be in the situation that we talked about with Montana Love, where you're put in safe situations, and then when an actual test comes, you're not up to par. You can't do that with somebody like Andy Cruz. So I like what they're doing.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the comparison with Montana Love. Context is critical here, and the backstory of Cruz, given his amateur pedigree, is vastly different. I just think he's a higher level, a couple higher levels above Montana Love. I'll go to you, Gil. Your thoughts on Andy Cruz and how, and in terms of where he fits in this current 135-pound landscape.
Andy Cruz is a very different breed of Cuban fighter. We hear, Cuban amateur champion, Cuban amateur school, and we think, I won't make snoring sound effects, but you get my drift. That is not Andy Cruz. Andy Cruz is the modern Cuban who needs to adjust and know he needs to adjust to the American, to the worldwide professional style. And I've been impressed how quickly and admirably he's come along. He's in Florida. He's at the right place. He looked good. He looked very good on Saturday. He is being fast-tracked in the same way that Vasyl Lomachenko was being fast-tracked. And if he thinks he can do it, the clock's ticking on him, why not? Keyshawn Davis should not get anywhere near him. Keyshawn Davis has lost focus, in my opinion. I don't know what he needs to do to readjust and get it back, but he shouldn't be experimenting with that in front of Andy Cruz. If Andy Cruz, though, thinks he's ready for a title, I think he's got the skills to do it. I don't at all compare him to Montana Love. His pedigree is so much better. There is proof of concept with Andy Cruz. I say if he feels ready and he's willing to sign his name on the dotted line, go for it, man. The belts are there for the taking.
And if you hear that barking in the background, Gail's dog.
Andy Cruz fan, apparently.
Gail's dog approves in terms of the discussion about Andy Cruz. Let's move on to some other fights because we're a little bit pressed for time. Going back to you, Gail, fight took place yesterday over in England. Chris Billam-Smith, first defense of the WBO cruiserweight title. There's sometimes a thing in boxing called lucky winner.
Did we lose Mike?
I believe at the end of round 7.
We lost you there for a few seconds. If you want to repeat yourself.
Let me say it again. If there's a case of what you call a lucky winner, that was the case with Billam-Smith fighting Mateusz Masternak, first defense of the WBO title, right? For the most part, Masternak was winning this fight handily. And then I think in the round 7, all of a sudden, the fight was stopped and Masternak said no mas. Turns out to be a rib injury. Yeah, Billam-Smith got the win, but he didn't look that good. Unmute your mic, Gail.
Bottom line is Billam-Smith did win the fight. There are a lot of fighters that are losing rounds up until they get a stoppage. Looked like the cards had Masternak 2-3 rounds ahead. It was a fairly even fight as far as the performances were going. Masternak was probably landing the harder shots. Not to say that either of them was punching each other's lights out, but at the end of the 7th round, Billam-Smith did some excellent body work. He landed some terrific shots, and that is what stopped the fight. Masternak made it to the corner. At the start of the 8th round, he could not come out, and they informed the referee he was unable to continue. Whether he's got broken ribs, damaged ribs, whatever it was, clearly those body shots had done their business. So Billam-Smith gets the victory. The cruiserweight division is having a renaissance. I'm fascinated by it. I love it. Uh, but of the reigning title holders, in order of skills and upside, Billam-Smith is probably at the end of the list. He's a competent fighter. It seems like he's got a good work ethic. He seems willing to get in the ring with about anybody, but he would not have a chance in hell against Jai Opetaia. Uh, I think that he might even struggle against somebody like Badu Jack. Um, I think the road for him would be pretty tough against the top talents. But he is riding high right now. He's taking his title out for a spin and enjoying it. You know what? Why shouldn't he? Good for him.
I mean, the most likely fight for Billam-Smith, at least they're talking over in England, is a matchup against Richard Riapport. They previously fought, and I believe Billam-Smith won that fight. If I'm Riapport, who was at ringside, who's at ringside, I think he did some color commentary as well. I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, bring that fight on. I want him again, and I want him ASAP. So that's going to likely to be the next opponent for Billam-Smith at some point in 2024. Let's go from that fight in England to a card in Florida. The main event we'll get to in a second between Robeisy Ramirez and Rafael Espinoza. But first off, Daniel, on the undercard, you had Xander Zayas fighting a guy by the name of Fortea. Zayas put him down. I think first round was dominant throughout before stopping him in 5. There is a call for Zayas to step up the level of competition. He's ranked in the top 5 by the WBO at 154. It looks like that's going to happen next. You could talk about this fight briefly if you want, but from what I'm hearing, Zayas' next opponents will be against Patrick Teixeira, February, Madison Square Garden.
That's good to hear, because this is kind of the fight. This the intensity and the position that you wanted to see from somebody like Xander Zayas at this point of his career. Because I was worried after the first knockdown that he was just going to headhunt after seeing how he hurt Pereira. But he stayed focused. He landed his combinations, and he kept hitting the body. Even to the point, I think, where the second knockdown, he didn't even have to hit that hard. It was just a tap. And that's the type of energy, and that's the type of aggressiveness you need for Xander Zayas if you're going to see him ready to move up in this division. Still knowing full well that the top 2 dogs are still Jamal Charlo and Tim Tszyu. And you got to make your case, especially with Charlo probably being slightly damaged goods after the Canelo fight. You have to make your case now that he should be ready for a title shot. And if he does good in his next fight, I can endorse it.
The main event here, and I want both of your input on this fight as well. Robeisy Ramirez, making the second defense of the WBO belt, fought unheralded undefeated Mexican fighter by the name of Rafael Espinoza. And this weekend was full of surprises in many ways. And this was arguably the biggest surprise of the weekend, one of the biggest surprises of the year, as Espinoza ends up winning by majority decision, new WBO champion. Called us a case, Gail, of playing with his food, right? Because Ramirez, in the early rounds, he wasn't punching enough. And as a result, Espinoza, he came hot like fire, throwing punches in bunches. 6'1", freakishly tall for a featherweight. He was in the champion's face in the early rounds. Robeisy Ramirez got the engine revving in round 5, hurt him at the end of that round with a right hook, hurt him again round 6, 7, and 8, but again, he played with his food. After the fight, he admitted that he thought he had the fight in the bag. Nope. He let his foot off the gas, and as a result, Espinoza, even though the times he got hurt, he kept fighting back. And what was the consistent theme? Punches in bunches, high work rate, and he was going to Ramirez's body. By the 11th round, you could see the fatigue set in. By the 12th round, Ramirez was gassed. He got hurt in that final round, put on the deck, lucky to make it to the final bell. And yeah, what has Gail told you repeatedly on the show? Beware of unheralded Mexican fighters. They spring out from nowhere and surprise many. Another case of that, Gail. Espinoza, uh, new world champion.
Mystery Mexicans, they get you in trouble every time. Espinoza was undefeated, but it seemed had limited opposition. You just don't really know when you're looking at a Mexican resume exactly what it consists of. It truly is a mystery. That's why we call these opponents mystery Mexicans. And just like Mio Yoshida, Espinoza knew he had the opportunity of a lifetime, and he was not going to let it get away from him. He threw 1,000 punches. I don't think Ramirez reached 700 punches. He left no stone unturned. And how many great fighters through boxing history have thought, yeah, I got this. I can coast through the last few rounds. No, you do not know what the judges are going to do. You don't leave it in the judge's hands. And let me tell you, a judge knows when a fighter eases off the gas, and they don't like it at all. So even still, given all of that, the fight had momentum swings back and forth. And it really had come down to that last round, as it turned out. And Espinoza wanted to put his stamp on it. His corner told him before the last round, son, if you want to be a world champion, the time is now. You've got to do this. And gave him, the classic pep talk, and it worked. He scores the knockdown. It was the difference, and it was the win for him. And yet again, another fighter's life changes. Yeah, Ramirez owned it. Good for him. Throughout the weekend, I saw a lot of sportsmanship, a lot of very realistic assessments, no denials from some of the fighters who were favorites and lost. A very humble acceptance of not being good on the night and vowing to learn from it. And I will give all of them a chance. The Prograis, the Bridges, the Ramirez's. What will they learn from these experiences? Let's find out in the months to come.
The talk before this fight, Daniel, was putting Robeisy Ramirez um, in a unification bout in 2024, with the end goal being a fight with Inoue at some point at 126, late 24, early 2025. That goes out the window now. This particular fight, candidate for fight of the year, to me, they should run it back. Will they?
In the spirit of competition, they should, because this is a situation where, like I said, it isn't. It reminds me a little bit. It's not the same situation. It's not exact same circumstance, but it's similar circumstances to me. When Ramirez hurt Espinoza, remember he first hurt him because Espinoza made the mistake of switching stances in front of Ramirez without his guard being up, and Ramirez landed a perfect shot. You saw how Espinoza got up and then stumbled a little bit to the ropes on the way down. There are referees who probably would have stopped the fight right then and there. And you could say they would be right, because then the fighter shows he's hurt. there are also referees, like just happened in this case, that will let it go on. That you saw the fighter Espinoza do really good in the previous rounds. Try to give him a shot. It's kind of to me a little bit like I said, it gave me a remembrance of Frank Capitino, the late Frank Capitino, mind you, in that classic Gotti versus Ward one. Remember, Frank Capitino had every right to stop that fight in the ninth round, but he didn't. Because he saw something in there. He said, this fight has to continue. That's what happened in this case. And that allowed Espinoza to stay in the fight. And in that 12th round, just throwing uppercut after uppercut after uppercut, not letting Ramirez off the hook at all. And we saw how close the scorecards were. It does change your life if you persevere. And this is another Manny Robles fighter pulling through and coming in with the win, not only win, but a championship. Yeah, it does change your life. If I remember correctly, wasn't Mauricio Lara a Manny Robles trained fighter when he took Josh Warrington's soul?
I believe so.
Yeah, like I said, that man can do some things, and especially with that speech. But good on Espinoza for not giving up. And like I said, sometimes, yeah, you can end the fight too early. Luckily, in this case, just took one man's decision, and it changed another man's life completely.
Indeed. Feel good. I don't know. I was proud watching this. The fact that Espinoza rose up from quote unquote nowhere to perform as well as he did, just the fight in general, and really proud in terms of what all took place this weekend. This was fantastic. This was what boxing is supposed to be and what should be on a regular basis. Let's move to some news here because we're basically less than 48 hours after all the action that took place. Not much news, but one thing that developed is actually hours before the Prograis Haney bout, news broke that the IBF was threatening to strip Jai Opetaia of the IBF cruiserweight title. Eddie Hearn made the announcement that Opetaia is going to vacate the belt. Talk of him fighting at Bridger weight. I hope not. But Gail, Daniel, your reaction to this, and why is the IBF acting like this? Why they want to be spoiled sports? I know why and sanctioning body rules and all that stuff when it comes to mandatory, but this fighter from Australia, I'm really liking him. I think he looked fantastic in his first title defense. I think he has the opportunity. Had the opportunity to really become the figurehead at cruiserweight, raise the level of the division since the departure of Usyk a few years back. They're ruining a good thing here by with their threats of stripping him of the title, and Opetaia had no choice but to give up the belt as a result.
Many fighters have proved over the years that they do not need a belt to be popular, to be admired, to show their skills. And I think that any sanctioning body that behaves like this, the fighters are right to say, fine, take the belt. We've had several instances of this recently. And what does the fighter lose? Well, the fighter actually gets back the sanctioning fee, and the more money they're making, the bigger a hit that they take in the wallet. I'm not sure Opetaia needs the IBF more than the IBF needs him, especially at cruiserweight has been, a very moribund division, since Usyk's departure. It had some really rough years. It suddenly got some energy to it. Sanctioning bodies are going to be sanctioning bodies. Honestly, there's been discussion over the last few weeks that's also involved the WBC. that you can make an argument that fighters value the Ring magazine belt, the Ring belt. They hold very fast to their rules. They're very transparent about it. In fact, there was a heated discussion inside the ring by their committee about whether the Bam Rodriguez versus Sonny Edwards fight this weekend should be for the Ring title. But it does not qualify per their rules. And they can discuss and make exceptions. They chose not to. They stuck to the line. And fighters will tell you that that title means a lot. And they do not pay for it. They don't lobby for it. They either qualify in their fight or they don't. So the rest of the sanctioning bodies, they should really be looking over their shoulder at how useful they're going to continue to be. Because they can easily work themselves out of the picture if they make enough stupid moves.
In the aftermath of the development last week, with Serrano basically saying no to the WBC, you're not going to dictate things in this manner. You see this following up, and to your point, the sanctioning bodies are getting in danger of becoming irrelevant in a certain context. If you are a fighter who has certain level of clout, certain level of standing and pull, you're absolutely right, Gail. You don't need them, nor the nonsense, and including the way they rule things when it comes to mandatories or even paying those silly sanctioning fees. So this is just another case of a boxer taking back their power. This is another example of a boxer reclaiming their power. And I'm not mad at this decision from Opetaia and Hearn. Let's move on to some fights here, previewing some fights, because, again, we're a little bit pressed for time. So I'm trying to run these things through as quickly as possible. Going to break these fight previews down. How do I want to go? Let's start with the card on the 15th in Orlando, Florida, on DAZN. I'm not talking about the main event. You know why? My stance on Mr. Paul. He's not the main event as far as I'm concerned. Daniel, the main event for me, we've talked about this fight for months. Franchon Crews-Dezurn fighting Shadasia Green, vacant WBC women's super middleweight title. The title was stripped from the former champion Savannah Marshall was lost the belt due to injury, right? The former undisputed champion Savannah Marshall is out with injury, and as a result, they're going to fight for this vacant title. I've said it for months that Franchon Cruz really didn't want none of Green in the ring. The fight is happening. In my opinion, Green is the clear favorite. I think she's the better boxer. I think she's more athletic. I think she's more skilled. Franchon Crews-Dezurn is tough, and she can take a punch. You've constantly made the comparisons to Anna Wolf. I think they're going to show themselves in full force. It's going to be an exciting fight. It's going to be the toughest test of Shadasia Green's career, but I think in the end, she's going to prove her worth, and she's going to shine in what should be a fantastic bout.
Oh, if you can see me now, folks, I'm doing the Birdman hand rub because I've been waiting for this fight. You'll see, Shadasia Green was going to get her belt. It was either going to be from Marshall or it was going to be from Crews-Dezurn. And it always felt to me like, in many ways, Marshall made a business decision to get out of that way because
she did.
Shadasia Green is the real deal. Like, when we talk about the reincarnation of Ann Wolf, we don't say that lightly. Shadasia Green has the power. Shadasia Green has the skill set, the footwork, and on top of that, Jadasia Green has that mean streak that Ann Wolf had, that made her such a feared fighter in Ann Wolf's day, that made her such a feared trainer in many ways, as the only trainer that can actually work with James Kirkland. And that is the opportunity you want to have, because obviously in the division she's around, who's the top dog? Clarissa Shields. And it's a good barometer to test yourself and to make your presence known, especially to somebody like Clarissa saying, I'm here, I'm the top dog now. I don't have to come to you, you have to come to me. So I got a feeling that this is going to be a very exciting fight and a very good win for one Miss Shadasia Green.
On the 16th, Gail, in Minnesota, all the talk is about Benavidez and Canelo, but there's another fighter who should get more pub, and that's WBA regular champion David Morrell. He's fighting in what is his adopted hometown of Minneapolis against a guy by the name of Agbeko. I think that on talent alone, Morrell is just as good as Benavidez and Canelo. Uh, and I think he's going to have his way with Agbeko. Your thoughts, right quick.
This is the last Showtime card. This is
Yeah.
the very last ever Showtime card. It's a regular card, it's not a pay-per-view. So Morrell will be forever in boxing's history books as being the final main event produced by Showtime Boxing. Morrell is a very talented fighter. He's very skilled. It's odd that he's ended up in Minneapolis and he has completely embraced his American hometown, and they have embraced him. It's been an amazing phenomenon. So he is fighting at home. The Armory is, sort of the Carson, sort of the StubHub of the Midwest. A venue that produces a lot of good fights. It fills up, a lot of enthusiastic fans there, which is terrific. Yeah, he should have no problem with this opponent. He's the guy that none of the others want to face, not necessarily because they're afraid of him. I've got air quotes floating there, but it's the old risk versus reward. He's not as well known. He's not as flashy. He just goes about his business. But he doesn't command the eyeballs, the audience, and the money. So to put yourself up against him, the risk reward doesn't really pencil out. Everybody's chasing David right now. He's at the top of the heap. I would say even more buzz than Canelo. Maybe not as much draw or as much money. So Morrell is sort of patiently waiting his turn, and he is very smart to stay busy. It's a constant theme we have come up the last few weeks. Better to stay busy, better to knock off these guys, stay in front of the public, don't let the ring rust get to you, keep your skills sharp. And who really wouldn't want to be on what is the last Showtime card? A lot of fights are lined up on the undercard. I don't know if we're going to talk about that rematch between two 40-year-olds.
No.
I'm not going to say names. It'll be interesting to see, just from a longtime fan's perspective, how Showtime chooses to go out this weekend.
Yeah. In the description here, for those who are checking us out on YouTube, I have Julio Cesar Martinez. He's defending his WBC flyweight title against Angelino Cordova. We're going to hold on in terms of preview of that and talk about on the next episode. We'll recap that. To Gail's point, this is the final card for Showtime, as they're going to bid adieu with boxing. But quick rundown: you're going to have Chris Colbert fighting Jose Valenzuela on that card, and those two 40-year-olds that Gail mentioned, Robert Guerrero and Andre Berto, fighting on that card as well. Just my response to that: why? It's just so unnecessary. Just unnecessary. and a bit desperate here. They don't need that in terms of their final card. No one asked for this. No one asked for it. But in terms of the Colbert fight and the Martinez fight, we will talk about that on the next episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. The final card I want to talk about here is one of the more another highly anticipated fight. This happening at the flyweight division. Daniel uh, Bam Rodriguez, WBO champion, fighting IBF champion Sonny Edwards. Really, really contrast in fight in styles and very, very intriguing fight. Bam is more of the all-around fighter, if you will, more of the aggressive fighter, come forward fighter against an Edwards who who thrives on frustrating opponents with his movement, with his speed, with his defense. Not much of a puncher, but he's very effective at what he does. The key for me is who can implement their style first and more often. That's the key for this fight.
This is going to be a fun one. This is going to be a very fun fight. And it is interesting, like I said, it's interesting that Gail mentioned it because, yeah, this is the fight where the Ring Magazine held up to their standard, said this is not going to be for the ring title, but in a lot of people's eyes, it's going to be who's the man at this division. Now, Bam has not exactly had the best caliber fights as of late, and so he's not coming in with a lot of momentum against somebody like Sonny Edwards, who entire game plan is frustrating your opponent, just outboxing, not letting you bang with them. But what's going to be interesting when it comes to this fight is I think Bam knows he has something to prove. He knows he had a lot of momentum after what he did at 115. He knows he lost some steam. And this is an opponent that could be tailor made for him to show off more of his skill set and to show that he can outbox somebody, not just like try to outrush them or outpower them. I do expect Bam to win because I think he's gonna have a lot more focus now that those division 112 to 118, they're gonna be pretty open for him. And he's young enough where he can still probably travel among all three of those divisions. And he's seen other young fighters. We talked about some of them tonight. Other young fighters are not being afraid to make history, try to go after championships, try to get undisputed in their resume. Bam to me is one of those people. I expect Bam to win. It may not be pretty, but I do expect Bam to win.
Quick, I want your opinion on this because of the significance of this bout unification contest, Gail. Your quick thoughts on this, and as will this will be the final word.
Bam Rodriguez has all the tools. He's sharp. I think his last few fights, he's a little off track, either a little overworked, overtrained, and certainly having come back from a broken jaw, he's had to work his way back up. This fight, I think he will be ready in the right place and in the right mindset. He's got far more skills than Edwards. Credit to Edwards. In my opinion, he has made absolutely the most of his skill set, which includes running his mouth, but he's damn good at it, and he is selling the fight. He's got a terrific future as a commentator, and I do mean that with all sincerity. He's phenomenal if you've heard him on some of the shows. But Edwards lacks power, and he cannot threaten Bam. He just can't. I think Bam will test him for a few rounds and then start working the angles, pivoting, and at some point, he's going to land a shot that Edwards is either seriously hurt by or just simply can't recover from at all. I think it will take him rounds, and I do think he'll be patient. So I see a late rounds stoppage for Bam Rodriguez.
And I think a little bit the opposite. Because Edwards is such a mover, such a slickster, and has such good defense and fast hands. I think that Bam is going to have difficulty getting to him can he cut off the ring sufficiently enough where he can get close and get to Edwards' body? I'm not sure. If he can't, he's in a world of trouble. Um, I think Sonny has a chance to outbox him here. The only question is, will he get the decision? Um, I think this is a very 50-50 fight, and I would not be surprised if Sonny Edwards gets the decision just because he just frustrates the heck out of Bam, who's still a young fighter. He's still very, very young fighter. He hasn't been through what Sonny Edwards has been through in his career. Um, I think we're going to end things on that note. I want to thank Hot Boxing Minute for checking us out live and his comments. If you're checking us out live on, if you're checking us out on YouTube, excuse me, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe button. Follow us. Uh, it'll help the overall algorithms behind the scenes. Get us that one step closer to being monetized. Going to go to the rest of the panel here. Gail from nyfights.com. For those who want to talk all things boxing, let the folks know where they can hit you up, social media or anywhere else.
nyfights.com is the place to find my coverage, my previews, recaps, and occasional Falcon talk rants. I'm sure there'll be at least one more coming on before the end of the year. On the social media, I'm pretty easy to find. There's only one Gail Falkenthal. I'm usually at PR Pro San Diego. And let me say, Hot Boxing Minute is the best boxing channel on TikTok. If you haven't checked him out, please do.
Indeed, I go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially all things Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
Oh yes, you can find me, folks. Same thing as Gail. Like I'm same link everywhere, whether it's Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Spoutable. You got to be prepared. Rockus 99, RWKZ 99, and that's catch on there. Gail had to remind us it is a melancholy weekend in many ways, unfortunately, because this is the final. Yeah, this is the final card in as far as North America goes of boxing being on a premium cable channel.
Yeah, sad that Showtime is deciding to part ways with the sport. But when we talked about this development a few episodes back, um, boxing has a way of surviving and thriving amongst sad developments like this, and we will continue to see fights. Um, we will find a way. PBC recently announced a deal with Amazon Prime. We wish Showtime would stay in the game, but unfortunately, it will not. It will not. Uh, 40 plus year relationship with the boxing will be no more after this weekend. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, because I refuse to call it X. They still go by twitter.com, so I'm going to continue to call it Twitter. I don't care what Elon says. Um, you can check me out on Twitter at Brother JR at Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, and fragrance, including my post regarding scent of the day. I just did one while we were recording this live show. You can check me out on IG and TikTok, Brother JRSC. On the next episode, we would have a recap of the aforementioned fight between the unification flyweight bout between uh, Jesse Bam Rodriguez and Sonny Edwards. Um, also talk about a couple more fights on that is going to happen. I want to say in Glendale, Arizona. Yes, in Glendale, Arizona on the zone. MJ Akbadalia, former unified champion at 122. He makes his return to the ring. Gagal Lafai, he's going to fight on that card as well. We will also do a recap of Shadasia Green in her fight against Franchon Crews-Dezurn for the vacant WBC belt at 168 pounds. Sandor Martin, he's fighting over in England. we may talk about that. We will definitely talk about the fight between Morrell and Agbeko. And again, on the undercard of Morrell and Agbeko, Chris Colbert fighting Jose Valenzuela. Um, Julio Cesar El Rey Martinez is fighting Angelina Cordona. Um, yeah, and we will do a preview of the loaded for Bear December 23rd card in Saudi Arabia. Anthony Joshua fighting Otto Wallin, Deontay Wilder fighting Joseph Parker, Daniel Dubois fighting Big Baby Miller, um, Frank Sanchez and Junior Five. The aforementioned Jay Opetaia is going to fight on that card. Dmitry Bivol makes his return to the ring as well. So yeah, December 23rd, a loaded card is going. It should be a lot of boxing talked about next week. We may just do um, recaps and previews because it's going to be so many fights again. Just like this past weekend, it's going to be so many fights on the weekend of the 16th and previewing fights for the weekend of the 23rd. So again, I want to thank Hot Boxing Minute for checking us out. For Gail of nyfights.com, for Daniel of 4 Boxing News and the Inscriber, this has been episode 428 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you next, guys. We will see everyone next time. Have a good evening. Good night.